Lots of our audience is dating, trying to find love again after 50. And politics is just an overarching issue everywhere. How do you talk to somebody? What don't you say? Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I'm so happy to welcome back Dr. Jeanne Safer, the author of I Love You, But I Hate Your Politics. Jeanne, thank you for joining us again.
You said that very well. The way I like to say it is, I love you, but I hate your politics.
Well, I saw that you have the hate is in capital, so I try to capture the spirit of it. I do. I mean, I love this book. You see all my little marks. I have so
yes. That always warms an author's heart.
Well, believe me, I mean that. This book changed my attitude towards politics and relationships, and that's what we want to talk about.
What a wonderful thing to hear.
Oh, I mean it. I completely mean it. I should expand on your introduction here a little bit. Jeanne is a psychotherapist. You're also the author of several other books with very tantalizing titles. You like to go where other people
This is my 8th book, actually.
Your 8th book, okay. And it is so necessary right now. Relationships are getting, broken up left and right. Nobody knows how to handle it. Nobody knows what to do. And I know that you saw this a lot in your, in your practice. So let's talk about that. What actually drove you to write this book?
There was nothing about this topic anywhere. I mean, people would say, either a patient or somebody would, oh God, I can't talk to this person anymore. But nobody ever thought, well, what can we do about this? And I have a practical side. I mean, I've been a therapist for 45 years. And it seems to me that we can do something about an awful lot of things. If you care about somebody, figure it out.
Yeah. And I should add, there's the sirens in New York. I didn't say this in the introduction because we were so enthusiastic to just jump in and talk. You don't just come from, to this topic from a clinical professional perspective.
Right.
You are a self-proclaimed, liberal, lifelong liberal who is married to about as right as a person can get.
And a lot of my patients are right wing. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
That I can think about the other side without saying, well, why don't you think like me?
Yeah. Where do we start, Jeanne? What, people are watching who are either having difficulty in a relationship or are dating. Lots of our audience is dating, trying to find love again after 50. And politics is just an overarching issue everywhere.
I think it's how people approach politics. If what you think is that unless this person agrees with me on every single point, that I can't have an intimate relationship with anybody who disagrees with me, that is preposterous. I think it's devastating because I know an awful lot of people that I agree with politically that I wouldn't think would be good friends. And I feel very fortunate to also have friends who don't agree with me on political things, but who come to the hospital. That's always my definition. Who shows up, not who they voted for, but when they vote for you. You know what I mean? And that has been really the revelation of my life, because I kind of started out thinking, because I'm now 75, I guess. Yeah. Shocking to think of it. That if people didn't agree with you, could you have a relationship with them? And the answer is, of course. Are you crazy? I mean, you think that politics is going to say whether a person can be your friend or not, or who's going to stand by you? Because it's not true.
Well, and that's what's happening. If you're not in the same political party, or you don't have the same beliefs, and that you can't be friends, and you certainly can't be, in a relationship.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of people that agree with me that I don't trust. And I think that actually being married to somebody who does has really been an education about what matters in love.
Yeah. Well, and you two, of course, you're very respectful to each other. And I think that's where a lot of other people lose it. They lose respect, or they try to convince somebody else of their point of view.
That's the end.
Yeah.
Why should somebody change their mind because you tell them to?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, they never do. I've written 8 books, and in every one of them, I've always said, do not attempt to change anybody's mind, because all you'll do is destroy the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No. Here, read this. No. What are people thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of things that I want to cover here, like, is what to do and what not to do. How do you talk to somebody? What don't you say? So if you are, say, you're meeting somebody for the first time, do you lay down the groundwork that you don't want to talk about politics, or do you
It depends on how the conversation goes.
Okay.
If you find that you're uncomfortable,
mm-hmm.
if you find that it's going into territory that it's not going to go well,
mm-hmm.
you can say, let's leave the politics out.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, I don't think this is a great idea for us to talk about. You can say it. You don't have to go along with it if somebody wants to do it.
Yeah.
You really don't. I mean, this is, as a therapist, I can say that you don't have to do what somebody else wants to do. It may be the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, I don't think most political discussions are very fruitful, frankly. I mean, unless you're talking to somebody where that's what you're doing, you're discussing politics, and you both come in knowing that's what you're doing. But at a dinner party,
yeah.
I think it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to talk about?
Right. Well, especially in this heated climate right now. So it's okay to not talk about it, because I know somebody, like, when this comes up on the show, a dating, shows or something, I get comments like, well, I can't imagine not talking politics to somebody, or,
really?
And yeah, that's what I said to, why is that important? I mean, I kind of get what they're saying, but at the same time, if you're going to disagree.
Involved. I mean, why do you assume that somebody else is going to want to talk about what you want to talk about?
Right.
How about trying to find something in common?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I find most political conversations pretty god-awful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless somebody really is very thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
And because, I mean, look, I've also been in a situation, since Rick was the protege of William F. Buckley Jr., I mean, I sat next to Bill at a lot of dinner parties, and we found ways to talk and to say, well, what do you think of this? Or, how is this going? There are ways to do it that are not hostile,
mm-hmm.
Which can be very interesting.
So did you talk politics with William F. Buckley?
Yeah.
Did you?
Sure.
I love
that. I mean, I didn't talk about the fact that he was against abortion. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? But I could ask him. He was a very intelligent man. Mostly what he and I talked about was the music of Bach, because we both loved it. So you can also, which is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. By that I mean that you can find, if you can find something in common with somebody who disagrees with you politically, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah.
There are many things you can have in common. Bill was a fascinating guy. He was extremely smart. I would ask him questions, he would answer them. We had a good time. And also, there was another man who was the publisher of National Review. Because Rick worked for National Review since he was 25. He was their protege. And this man's name was Bill Rusher, and he was to the right of Bill Buckley.
Oh my goodness.
But he became a dear friend of mine. He actually called me his daughter. Can you imagine it? So I have nothing in common with this man politically, but he was so interesting and so thoughtful, and would listen to me, and I would say, "Well, tell me about this or that," and he would tell me, and we never got in an argument, because it is possible, if you find a way to say, "Tell me what you think about this. What's your?" You can do that if you go in with a chip on your shoulder. Heaven help you.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, is the chip on the shoulder and just wanting to be right,
and changing the other person's mind.
And just what is your I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Disaster.
interrupt you, but before I forget, one of the key points that you made me see is, what is your motivation for wanting to talk about it? I never thought about that. Like if somebody brings it up.
If your motivation is to change the other person's point of view,
Yeah.
go jump off the building instead. It's not going to happen. All you will do is lose the possibility of friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And this has worked for me for years. I mean, I can't tell you how many dinner parties and things I've been to where I was the only liberal. So I took the opportunity to say, well, tell me what you think about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you think of this? I mean, I'm not going to change their mind, but I can find out what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I found people very respectful. Isn't that interesting? I always thought they wouldn't be, but they were.
Yeah.
Well,
and I did hear you say, though, that you guys don't talk politics. I mean, you made it, if I'm understanding this right, I think I read it and I think you told me that really politics is not something you two, regularly discuss. But
we're not that interested in talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could certainly say, well, what do you think of this candidate? What do you think of that? And, that kind of thing we could do, because Rick is very knowledgeable about that kind of stuff.
Right.
But there's so many other things in the world. If you're married 45 years, you have a lot of other things to talk about. And when I met Rick, I met him in a singing group. Mm-hmm. We sang Renaissance religious music on street corners in New York on Sunday afternoons for 4 hours. So we're both singers. So, and that's how I met him. And so what I was interested in was his voice and his personality and his blue eyes and that kind of stuff. And when I found out that he was Buckley's protege, I thought, oh, that's interesting.
It is interesting. It's incredibly interesting.
I mean, I didn't feel like I had to convert him or he was going to convert me.
Well, and I think what you bring out, Jeannie, is that separate the essence of the person from politics. That politics, and well, a lot of people get this in our comments all the time, that politics reveal what really are your core values. But I'm learning through you, no, that's not the case. Not always, anyway.
No, I wish it was that easy. Mm-hmm. But there are plenty of people whose politics are identical to mine, and I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. And I feel very grateful for having learned that people who disagree with me politically can be incredibly loyal friends. I mean, as an example, our next door neighbor, she's a devout Catholic. When Rick was ill, I had to beat her off from going to the hospital with me every day because of what her character was. Mm-hmm. I know we disagree, but so what?
Yeah. Well, I think the overriding message in your book, and it just makes so much sense when you read it, is that no, politics do not need to destroy your relationships.
And they don't define you either.
Yeah, well, bottom line, it doesn't need to destroy your relationships. Again, the book is, I love you, but I hate your politics. I will link to this. It's, you interviewed like 50 different couples who have various struggles people can relate to.
And they worked it out.
Yeah.
I think there's only maybe one couple that got divorced. Mm-hmm. Because when you define the relationship as the thing that's worth saving, then you figure out how to do it.
Right.
And you can also on the way find out that if somebody disagrees with you, it's not the end of the world. It can actually be interesting. I mean, would I have known anything about the right-wing world if I hadn't married Rick? No, I never, ever would have known anybody. Mm-hmm. And look what I would have been missing.
Yeah, what an interesting life. Well, both of you have. You both had an incredibly interesting life, and now you're such a role model when it's needed the most. Jeannie, thank you so much for your time.
It's delightful to be with you.
For writing this book. There's some other topics I'd like to discuss with you.
Of course. Anytime. Because it's always, one of the things about writing a book is that you love to tell people what you were really trying to say. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Oh, Jeannie, I hope to see you again soon on Saturday.
Yes, me too.
Bye-bye.